You know, for the past few months, even before this past April, I was, as all of you probably saw in my videos, I was kind of upset, if not very upset, at the fact that my town's only Blockbuster, and this is a small town, I don't know if you will, but my town's only Blockbuster. And again, this is a small town, sort of a semi-city, if you will, or small-time city. But I was upset that this town's only Blockbuster was being shut down. And, a lot of people, and I've mentioned this, I believe, in one of my videos, a lot of people blame the fact that the reason my Blockbuster and the Blockbusters around the country in their towns and cities were being shut down was due to the fact that it's money. It's money reasons, it's financial reasons. While others have cited that it's the reason for these people right here, Netflix. And the people that are similar to them, Gamefly, but I don't have no picture of Gamefly on me right now. I just want to focus right now on Netflix. And after thinking about it for a while, I can probably understand why a lot of people would say Netflix is the reason, the main reason that Blockbuster went out of business. Is the main reason. I could probably understand that. The reason I say I can understand that is because, well, Netflix gives you more of an option. You see, when I think I did a comparison video about this, and I said that the reason Netflix was more popular, and I think the reason, and again I say this is the reason that Blockbuster went out, the stores went out of business, was because of the fact that not only could you mail for DVDs, like 3 to 5 DVDs or Blu-rays, and keep them for as long as you wanted, but it was also the fact that they gave you options when it came to streaming. In other words, watching certain movies and television shows without having to get up from your couch and go to a store and all that to buy the seasons. And to me, I think that's what obviously helped Netflix become the dominant force that it is. It's kind of like, and I've done this before with other videos I've talked about, because I've done these comparisons. But it's like going back and comparing this to the whole wrestling situation of the Monday Night Wars of WCW and WWE. And the reason I say that is because back then, WCW was like the Blockbuster, if you will, when they started dominating. It's like nobody could touch them. Nobody could even lay a hand on them. No one could lay a hand on them at all. Excuse me. But like I was saying, and I'm sorry if I'm not that close to the mic, but it's like I was saying, it's like nobody could lay a hand on them at that time. No one could really lay a hand on Blockbuster, just like nobody for, as they talk about it, 82 to 83 weeks every Monday night, nobody could touch WCW. That is until WWE had a fire lit under them. And then all of a sudden, WWE just started to, as soon as that fire was lit, just took off and never looked back. The same thing with Netflix. You see, when Netflix began, I'm pretty sure a lot of people at Blockbuster and some various other outlets, but mainly Blockbuster, they looked at Netflix and said, they're not going to make it. They're not going to last. They're nothing. But what happens? As soon as Blockbuster probably acknowledges Netflix and says, hey, they're not going to be this, they're not going to be that, they're not going to compete with us, what did that do? That lit a fire under Netflix, and they literally just took off for the stars and never looked back. It's kind of like if you want to go back to another wrestling phase, or saying, another wrestling saying, it's kind of like saying that, it's kind of like using, it's kind of like quoting what people say about TNA anytime, Slammiversary, which recently happened, comes around. People, to kind of paraphrase what they say, people thought that TNA wouldn't last a few weeks, wouldn't last a few months. But now here they are, almost going on 10 years next year, and they're still going strong. It's the same thing with Netflix. Blockbuster would looked at Netflix and considered, oh, they're not going to last a few weeks, they're not going to last a few months, they're not even going to last barely a year. And what's happened? They've lasted a lot longer than that. Why? Because Netflix, again, like I said, offers things that Blockbuster doesn't. See, Blockbuster, because of Netflix, got into the mailing, renting and sending movies and games by mail because of Netflix. They got into the streaming of movies and shows because of Netflix. But you see, again, like I said, and I've mentioned this in my comparison video, Netflix has a lot more to offer. And that's what I meant by the fact that when I'm pretty sure those big execs and everything, those big corporate big shots, if you will, at Blockbuster looked at Netflix when it first began, everything they said about Netflix not being able to compete with them, probably not lasting as long as it has, all that did was light a fire under them. All they did was light a fire under them, and they've never looked, and they've taken off and never looked back since. I mean, take a look at what Netflix offers you nowadays. And I don't even think Blockbuster, on their limited devices, which are mainly like Blu-rays and, DVDs with internet outlets, but Blu-ray players and stuff like that, and TiVos and whatever. Look what Netflix offers you streaming-wise when you watch it on your Wii, your PS3, your Xbox 360, your Blu-ray players, and even your DVD players. And even your Rokos, or whatever they're called. And your mobile devices, your iPods, your iPads, your iPhones, your Androids and stuff like that, your HTCs. Take a look at what they offer compared to what Blockbuster offers. I mean, okay, let's say you're a fan of the X-Men. Let's say you're an X-Men fan, right? A fan of the original 1990s X-Men. Now, you can watch the original 1990s X-Men, all episodes, all 76 episodes, right there on Netflix streaming. Same thing with X-Men Evolution. I mean, take a look at Power Rangers. If you're a fan of the original Power Rangers, you can watch every single Power Rangers episode up to the more recent ones, not Samurai, not yet that I think of, but the more recent ones, but the most recent one before it. And that tells you something, that you can watch all those episodes just like that. And again, it's not just them either. It's not just them either, folks. You take let's say you have a family that grew up in the 80s. And they're fans of some shows that came on in primetime, sitcoms like Cheers and Married with Children. If you're fans of those, you can watch every single episode without any interruption. Let me ask you this. Does Blockbuster offer you that? No, they don't. And that's why, as much as it sounds like I'm being very biased, and I am, apparently, this is why Netflix caused Blockbuster store-wise to shut down, in my opinion. And this is why Netflix, being in the position that WWE was in for up to that 83rd week, finally had that fire lit under them and just took off and never looked back. It's kind of like what a lot of people are saying about TNA and wrestling, about TNA/Impact Wrestling and Ring of Honor Wrestling, ROH. They're saying that all they need is that one little spark to light that fire that's been lit, to really help them take off and not look back, to leave companies and promotions like the WWE in the dust. That's what a lot of people, if you're a fan of ROH and TNA/Impact Wrestling, are saying right now and have been saying that all they need is that one little spark to light that fire that's been lit, to light it into an inferno, into a phoenix, if you will, and just have them take off and never look back. That's what a lot of people are saying. And that's the same thing that's happened with Netflix. And and the same thing could be said for GameFly, GameFly, again, just like Netflix, Blockbuster looked at GameFly and they said, they're not going to last. And guess what? They've lasted. I mean, GameFly, believe it or not, has become what essentially is known as the... How do I compare this wrestling-wise? I guess you could say they sort of became like the ROH of renting, of mailing and renting games. Oh, rent by mail games, if you will. They have become like the ROH. Because as much as I like watching TNA at times, TNA lately has been, they've been trying to get back into wrestling, focus mainly on wrestling matches. But there have been times, even now, despite the name change, that they still have more promos than wrestling. As a matter of fact, the Schleg Daddy and Off the Rope show mentioned this in his most recent review of it this past week. But, again, this is why I compare GameFly to ROH, because GameFly mainly focuses on the best games of all consoles over the past 10 years, if not for the past 10 years. I mean, they even have games to rent for your GameCube. And I think even your PS2 still. So what's to say? So there's that. And then, like I say, they mainly focus on that. That's their main focus. They're not trying to interrupt you with differences. They're not trying to... And you see, this is what makes GameFly a lot better than Blockbuster, because the newest games at GameFly you can get just like that if they're not already being rented, to the point that they have a low percentage of rental for you to get, low percentage of games for you to rent. But they always have the newest games. With Blockbuster, you have to wait about 4 or 5 months before the newest games are available to rent online. And again, this is what makes GameFly the Ring of Honor, if you will, the ROH of rent by mailing services. And what makes Netflix like the WWE. I'm not saying that Ring of Honor is not... I'm not saying that GameFly is not going to get to the level that Netflix is. They may do it someday. Because all they have to do eventually, if I'm GameFly, is get a deal with all of the gaming companies out there and gaming consoles and all that, and say, hey, we're going to do an online streaming deal where you can play the games, where you can play as many games as you want, just like you could stream as many movies and shows that you want on Netflix. We're going to do the same on GameFly. if they start doing that someday, then GameFly will overtake Netflix, if not be on the same level. But a lot of people have said that Netflix, all they need to do is to get into renting games by mail, and they will be on a whole different platform. They will be in a whole different stratosphere. That's what a lot of people are saying. But again, to me, this is why Netflix and even GameFly are the reasons that Blockbuster, store-wise, has gone out of business. And why Blockbuster Online, they're trying, but they really need to try even more so to really take it to that next level. I mean, there are some family members that I have that rent from that do the Blockbuster rentals online. There's no doubt about that. But me, let me just put it like this. I've been with Netflix since I lived in Kansas, and I'm going to stay with Netflix because they give you more options. They give you more freedom. They give you more of what you want. It's like I said, if you're a fan of the original 1990s X-Men or X-Men Evolution, of Brave Star, or He-Man, or She-Ra, you can watch all the episodes that you want on Netflix. Same with Cheers, same with Married with Children, and all your favorite animes are there too, like Girls Bravo, Witchblade, Soul Eater, and various others that are there. They even have the Popeye shorts, not digitally remastered, not cleaned up, but in the original film format, scratchy and all that, on here as well. So, again, this is why, in my opinion, as a longtime Netflix customer, that Netflix is the reason, along with GameFly, is the reason that the Blockbuster stores went out of business. Not due to the fact that Blockbuster was losing money on the stores. It was due to the fact that they were getting their asses handed to them by Netflix. And it's all thanks to the fact that some high executive up at Blockbuster when Netflix first began, and the same goes for GameFly, when these two companies first began, lit a fire under them to the point that fire turned into a phoenix for Netflix and turned into an inferno, if you will, for GameFly, and helped them to take off and never look back. The only thing now is if, Blockbuster wants to reclaim that throne as the company to where you rent movies and games from, then they really have to start improving. They really have to improve. They have to start renting out the newest games as soon as they come out by mail, not wait a few months. They have to start streaming television shows and of all seasons and stuff. They just really need to up the game. And maybe someday they will. Maybe soon they're going to have that fire lit under them and they're going to take off again. But right now, Netflix is on a whole nother level, and GameFly, like I said, is right behind them. And that's all I'm going to say. Comment down below. Tell me what you think. Do you agree or not with what I said? And I'll talk to you later.